Ginnie and the New Girl by Catherine Woolley. Chapter 1. PartyTricks. "Listen, kids," Ginnie said. "You've got to help me think up some games for the party." The four girls, Ginnie, Geneva, Anna, and Barbara, were gathered on Ginnie's front steps this Saturday morning. The sun felt hot as it poured down on their bare heads, yet the air, sparkling under the sapphire sky, was spiced with the flavor of October. "Let's play guessing games," Geneva suggested. "Coffee pot's good," said Barbara. The four girls had been summer playmates at the lake, and now Barbara, who lived in New York, was visiting Ginnie for the weekend. This afternoon, Ginnie was giving a party for her. "Is it a birthday party?" Barbara had asked. "No, it's an unbirthday party," Ginnie had told her, "so you can meet our friends." Four girls could scarcely be more different than this group, lounging in the warm sun. There was Ginnie Fellows herself, light brown braids catching a copper glint, brow puckered a bit over serious hazel eyes as she bore the responsibility for her party. Absently, Ginnie's hand stroked Honey's silky fur as the blonde cocker slept tight against her side. The stocky little tomboy in dungarees, with the short dark hair and gray eyes, was Ginnie's best friend, Geneva Porter. Geneva sat on the bottom step, her legs spread wide as she bounced a ball on the pavement. Brown-eyed, brown-haired Anna gently stroked Mumbo's hot, velvety fur as the black cat stretched contentedly across her knees. Anna was Ginnie's adopted cousin, who lived with Grandma now. And finally there was Barbara, the slim, brown-eyed blonde from New York, her smooth head graceful against a pillar. "Okay," Ginnie agreed. "We'll have the peanut hunt first, then coffee pot. Oh, let's let the boys think of the rest of the games." "Boys?" Geneva sat up in horror. "Did you invite boys?" "Just Peter and Leonard." Ginnie was apologetic, because Peter lives next door and Leonard's Lucy's twin. After all, Geneva gave a snort of disgust. A restless wind rustled the trees along the street in a song of autumn. Yellow leaves blew down like birds to carpet the lawn with sunlight. At the side of the house, a ladder scraped the walk as Ginnie's father moved it to take down screens. "How about Marcia?" Geneva said suddenly. "Did you invite her?" "No." Ginnie looked surprised. "Why should I ask her?" "Well, she's new here and everything. I only invited Lucy and Marjorie and Peter and Leonard, because they're our old friends. That makes 8 for games." Ginnie's mother opened the door above them. "Oh, how beautiful it is out here!" Mrs. Fellows exclaimed. "And I've been slaving in the kitchen. I hate to break up this gathering, but Ginnie and Barbara's lunch is ready. Could you charming young ladies bear to part for a couple of hours?" Anna put Mumbo down with a parting caress. Geneva pocketed her ball, and Ginnie and Barbara got to their feet. "The party's at 4, don't forget. Come early," Ginnie called, as Anna and Geneva took themselves off. "We've got to hide the peanuts and everything after lunch," Ginnie said as she and Barbara went in. An hour later the two girls were busy in the living room with a big bag of peanuts. Barbara was already dressed for the party in a blue sweater and skirt that set off her tan skin and fair hair. Ginnie, still in blue jeans, was carefully balancing a nut on the rim of a lampshade, and Barbara was poking peanuts in the corners of chairs when Geneva bounced in again. Peanuts! Good!" Geneva surveyed the scene appreciatively and helped herself as Ginnie held out the bag. "Thanks! My, you look nice!" she exclaimed, gazing at Barbara. "Thank you," Barbara said. Ginnie's eyes rested admiringly on Barbara, too. "Barbara's so stylish," she thought. "And she's smart and good at lots of things, like diving. But she never shows off, and she laughs a lot, and she's fun." She felt a small thrill of pride at having Barb as her friend and guest, introducing her to playmates. Barb is such a nice girl, she thought, her heart warming. "I just stopped in for a minute. I had to get dressed," Geneva said. "I wanted to tell you, Ginnie. Marcia called up." Ginnie cracked a peanut and slipped the meaty kernels from their skins. "Why?" "Well, she didn't exactly say so, but I think she'd like to come to the party. She said what was I doing this afternoon, and she knew already because I told her. Then she said she didn't have a thing to do, and how she loved parties. But we've only got 8 place cards and things." Ginnie shook her head, a bit put out at this intrusion. "I don't even know Marcia very well. I don't see why—" Geneva shrugged. "Well, I'm just telling you what she said." Barbara helped herself to peanuts, too, and stood looking from Geneva to Ginnie. "I don't remember hearing about a Marcia. Who is she?" "Marcia Duryea. She's new in school," Ginnie said. "She always wears, well, sort of fancy clothes." "Oh, she's okay," Geneva put in mildly. "Well, if I had a great big party with all the kids, I'd ask her, Geneva." Ginny assured her. Here, want some more peanuts? Geneva plunged her hand into the bag and appeared to consider the matter of Marcia closed. Want me to hide some for you? She asked. I know some good places in this room. She knew Ginny's house almost as well as Ginny did herself, as she was here so much, just as Ginny was at home at Geneva's. No, thank you, Ginny retorted. You certainly get the prize. Geneva went cheerfully off, munching peanuts. But the little incident bothered Ginny, and she placed peanuts absent-mindedly for a few minutes. She didn't like to think she had been unkind to anyone, but why does Marcia specially want to come to my party, she wondered. She had kind of a nerve to call Geneva up like that. Ginny set a nut on the windowsill behind a chintz drape. I don't see why Geneva thinks I should ask her, she exclaimed. Who? Oh, that girl, Barbara said. Geneva acts as if she's sorry for her, Ginny went on, thinking out loud. If she was poor or rich or anything, I'd feel sorry too, but she must be rich. She wears a new dress just about every day, and rings, and bracelets. I guess Geneva's nice to her because she's new, said Barbara, commented. I guess so. Geneva had the softest heart of the world under her flip manner, Ginny knew. Her own heart melted. Well, I'll ask Marcia over to play real soon. She just wouldn't fit into the party, though. There, those are all hidden. Now I'll go help Mother set the table, and I have to tie up the prizes. She and Barbara were ready, and the table was set for the party supper when the guests arrived. Geneva came first, then Marjorie. Opening the door for Anna, Ginny paused as she saw Peter Ladd, coming running up the lawn from the next door, to catch up with Lucy and Leonard Ransom. Ginny held the door open. Hey, Len, Peter was calling. Wait up! Lucy came into the house while the boys conferred. They're up to some trick as usual, she reported. The two boys, however, took part good-naturedly in the peanut hunt and the game of coffee pot. When these projects were over, Ginny's resources were temporarily exhausted. Now what shall we play? She inquired. We thought of 2 games, Geneva reminded her. We were going to make the boys think of some. Peter looked at Leonard, and Leonard looked at Peter, and they snickered. Okay, Peter said. We'll think up something. Where can we go to plan it? Ginny ran to open the door of the study. Go in here. The two tramped in, and she closed the door behind them. The girls waited. Why don't they come? Geneva demanded impatiently. Lucy knocked. Hurry up, she called. Keep out of here. We're not ready, Leonard informed her, opening the door a crack. At last, however, the study door opened, and the 2 boys emerged. Both were grinning broadly. It seemed to Ginny there was something a trifle odd about Leonard. What was he holding in his right hand? They looked the girls over. They looked at each other. Okay, Peter asked. Leonard nodded. The 2 approached Ginny and stood before her. I would like you, Peter said, trying to keep his face sober, to meet an old friend of mine. Ginny glanced suspiciously at Leonard, then at Peter. What were they up to? All right, she said cautiously. Ouch, my shoulder itches. Leonard put a left hand to his coat to scratch. As he extended his right hand toward Ginny, something leaped. Something small, green, horrible. Something with a pink, licking tongue. Ginny threw up her arms with a screech to ward it off and fell back on Geneva. Geneva upset Barbara, and the girls went all down in a sprawling heap. Peter and Leonard almost fell over too, hugging each other and shouting with joy at the success of their trick. It's a frog, Ginny gasped, wary of another attack. They've got a frog. Sure, Peter said. Want to meet my friend again? I'd like you to meet... No! With loud squeals, all 6 girls scrambled up and dashed for the living room. Barbara paused suddenly in mid-flight. Wait a minute, she said. I know what that is. It's made of rubber. Oh, Lucy gasped. You! She headed for her brother. The boys held her off, giggling. Let me see, Geneva dived into the fray. Leonard gave up. Okay, let's show them. Shall we, Pete? From under his jacket he pulled out a long tube with a rubber frog at one end and a bulb at the other. You hold the frog in your hand, he explained. You run the tube up from your sleeve and hide the bulb under your clothes. Then you say, I'd like you to meet a friend of mine, and you press the bulb. He held out his hand. Geneva stepped up and held her ground while the frog jumped. Gee, that's a good trick, she admitted. I'm going to get one. The boys threw themselves on the sofa, prepared to rest on their triumph. Now it's the girls' turn to think something up, Peter announced. Come on, girls, let's go in the other room, Geneva cried, leading the way. The 6 trooped into the study while Peter and Leonard helped themselves to peanuts. But once behind the closed doors, they had no ideas that could match the boys' trick. What shall we do? Ginny whispered, looking hopefully at Geneva. She always depended on Geneva at a time like this. We ought to think up something real good, Marjorie whispered. There was silence while their eyes roamed roamed the room, seeking suggestions. "Hey," Geneva said suddenly. She was gazing at the window. Just outside, a bit to one side, stood the ladder Ginny's father had been using. The screen had been removed. "I've got an idea," Geneva whispered. "Let's climb out the window and hide. They'll think we're still in here." "Oh!" Anna put both hands over her mouth in shocked amazement. "Let's!" Lucy chimed in. "Come on, I'll go first." Geneva was already tugging at the window, which slid open easily. "Be careful," Ginny whispered. "I will." She was half out. With one knee on the sill, she reached for the ladder with her other foot, swung herself over, and stepped quickly to the ground. "Come on!" One by one, they climbed over the sill and down to the ground. "Where shall we go?" Marjorie asked, when they were all out. "Behind the garage," Ginny whispered. They were off across the backyard like 6 streaks. Behind the concealing garage, they looked at each other and broke into giggles. "Oh boy, will they be fooled!" Geneva fairly moaned with delight. "They'll come looking for us in a minute," Marjorie predicted. Ginny peeked out around the corner. The house looked quiet and peaceful, with no sign of excitement or pursuing boys. They waited, listening. "Why don't they come?" Geneva demanded finally. Anna and Lucy had sat down on the ground against the garage, tired of standing. It was chilly there in the dusk, and none of them had a coat. Ginny hugged herself, shivering. "Why don't we creep up and look out in the window?" Barbara suggested at last. "It's almost dark. They can't see us." "Maybe we can climb back in," Geneva added. It was a welcome suggestion. One by one, they crept around the corner of the garage, crouched down, and scurried back across the yard to the window they had left. "Hey, look," Geneva said in a low voice. "Somebody closed the window. What's the matter with everybody?" "And the ladder's gone," Anna exclaimed. "What's going on around here?" Geneva demanded. "Somebody lift me up so I can see in." Barbara, Ginny, and Anna held her aloft. She shielded her eyes with her hands. "It's dark. I can't see anything," she whispered. "The door to the living room's closed." "Let's go around and look into the dining room," Ginny suggested. They scampered as silently as they could around to the back of the house. The dining room shades were up, and the room was lighted. "Lift me up again," Geneva ordered. They hoisted her on a level with the window, keeping a little to one side. Cautiously, Geneva edged over. Her eyes widened and her mouth opened in indignation as she stared in. Then her legs wiggled to be let down. "The jerks!" she gasped, when the others set her on the ground. "They're eating supper!" There was a loud gasp from all the girls. With one accord and no more attempt at silence, they headed for the front door, pounded up the steps, and burst inside. Leonard and Peter, calmly eating, did not even look up. The girls rushed into the dining room, clustered around the table, and slid, breathless and noisy, into chairs. "What's the idea?" Lucy gasped. "Eating without us?" Leonard looked up from a large plate of creamed chicken and peas in a pained surprise. Peter reached for a hot roll with one hand and a stuffed olive with the other. "Gee, Pete," Leonard said instantly. "I didn't miss them, did you?" Peter shook his head and grunted, his mouth full. Mrs. Fellows opened the door from the kitchen. "Are you back to stay?" she inquired. "Yes," Ginny eyed Mother anxiously. "Did they leave enough chicken for us?" Mother's eyes were dancing as she nodded. She stepped back into the kitchen and then came with a steaming silver dish. "I think there's plenty," she assured them. "But the next time you girls decide to disappear, don't do it when supper's ready. Especially," she added, beginning to serve the big pieces of chicken in their golden cream sauce, "when you leave 2 boys in the house with all the food."